Hello everyone, this is Duster and welcome to another episode review, and in this episode it talks about the pay-per-view event that happened in North Korea. The pay-per-view involved New Japan Pro Wrestling and WCW, and it happened on April 28th and April 29th of 1995. It was a 2-day event, and the main event was New Japan's Antonio Inoki versus WCW's Ric Flair. I'll go over the episode first and input my thoughts at the end. In 1994, World Championship Wrestling, WCW, was not on top of its game yet, but Eric Bischoff tried to make ties with New Japan Pro Wrestling leading up to this pay-per-view. Eric was an announcer for WCW at first and was later promoted to vice president. He brought Japanese stars to WCW and the WCW wrestlers to Japan in order to get international exposure. Antonio Inoki, who was chairman of New Japan Pro Wrestling back then, asked Eric if he would be interested in sending his WCW wrestlers to North Korea in order to compete in the Peace Festival. While being interviewed for the episode, Eric described Antonio as a well-known personality guy who was very popular in Japan. Antonio Inoki was a strong wrestling opponent who was known to slap very hard. Inoki was also known for his boxing wrestling match with legendary boxer Muhammad Ali in 1976. He created the Sports and Peace Party and would meet officials from the North Korea regime. One day, Antonio asked Eric if he could get Muhammad Ali to contact him. While contacting Eric, Inoki wanted Hulk to come to North Korea, but Hulk said no, leaving Eric to choose Ric Flair as his second choice. Wrestler Scott Norton was told by two Japanese wrestlers in the locker room that they will face him in North Korea. Scott felt that the North Koreans did not like the US people, and he would feel that way throughout the trip. The US back then viewed North Korea as a hostile place, as it was, and still is, a communist state. Japan colonized North Korea at the beginning of the 20th century. They ruled North Korea until the end of World War II, and to this day, there is still bad blood between the two countries. Road Warrior Hawk, Chris Benoit, the Steiner brothers, and other wrestlers were also going to North Korea, as Muhammad Ali was the special guest of honor. When the WCW wrestlers arrived at the airport, they saw Muhammad doing magic tricks, and it helped with their anxiety of going to North Korea. The plane that they had taken was small and cluttered. Scott said that he felt as though the plane was made in the 1940s. Once they had landed, the WCW wrestlers and Eric did not receive a happy welcoming party. The North Korean officials took the wrestlers' passports and anything else that was from America. Some of the wrestlers were not happy about this and felt that the officials were bitter. The wrestlers were paired into two pairs and had an attaché, which is a person on the staff of an ambassador. Mike Chinoy, who was a correspondent for CNN back in the day, said that North Korea was a weird experience as he was covering news for CNN in North Korea. Eric said that his attaché had told him that he was the 7th American to step foot in North Korea without getting shot. Sonny Onu, a WCW Japanese manager back then, was told by his government to not go on the trip as North Korea had strict rules. Eric and the wrestlers stopped by a statue of leader Kim Tu-sung, who had died in 1994, a year before the collision in Korea had started. The WCW crew were given flowers so that they could lay them close to Kim's statue. Once they got to the hotel room, Scott recalled in the episode that the military guys would follow the wrestlers wherever they went in the hotel, even going as far as following them to their rooms. One time, the wrestlers were playing a game of pool and the guards were there watching and standing. Whenever a ball on the pool table moved, it took a couple of minutes to get it back from the guards. One of the balls from the pool table fell to the ground and passed one of the guards, and they were very mad about it. The guards got so mad that they smashed the pool balls. Eric went running early in the morning and said that there was no one outside. A couple of minutes later, the North Koreans came outside and were frightened by Eric being by himself, just running around. Once he got back to the hotel, his attaché was livid at him for running, leaving Eric concerned for his attaché as he thought that the police were going to shoot her. Meanwhile, Two Cold Scorpio said in the episode that while he and the wrestlers were trying to enjoy their stay in North Korea, the television that they had in their rooms only had 3 channels. Scorpio also had issues while he was in North Korea, mostly with Road Warrior Hawk. In the episode, they mentioned how it was assumed that Scorpio was going to murder Hawk. While they were on the North Korean trip, Scorpio mentioned how during that time he had heat with Rick because Rick had Scorpio fired. I can't remember for what though. When Scorpio went on the bus, he said that Rick was too scared to get on the bus and called Rick the P slang word. Hawk, who was also on the bus, got mad at Scorpio for it and called Scorpio the N-word. He then tried to punch Scorpio but missed, causing Scorpio to punch Hawk back multiple times. This left Hawk bleeding through his mouth as the people on the bus were trying to hold back Scorpio. Scorpio then jumped on Hawk and almost took out Hawk's eye from his socket. Hawk then kicked Scorpio in the face, followed by a punch, which Scorpio said in the episode that the punch was a weak one. Scott tried to defend Hawk by saying that during that period Hawk was taking interferon for his hepatitis C and had flu symptoms. Meanwhile, at the hotel, Scott tried to call his wife and told her through the phone that the place was crazy. The connection gets cut and Scott gets a knock on the door from the North Korean guards telling Scott to come with them. Officials got Scott into a room and another man came in. The guy told Scott not to say anything bad about North Korea as they had heard Scott's call. Moments later, the WCW wrestlers go to a sacred tomb and meet up with Muhammad Ali, who had jogged to the top of the stairs and danced. It made everyone feel a little better after the situation with the hotel rules. Scorpio said that while he was trying to make peace with Hawk, Hawk punched him and the Japanese wrestlers tried to break up the fight. Once they had dinner, Scorpio collected his chopsticks and tried to use them to kill Hawk, as he had told his plan to Chris Benoit, who was sharing a room with Scorpio. The next day, the Peace Festival had arrived at the May Day Stadium in Pyongyang, North Korea. About 300,000 people attended the event. Scott sees a lot of people going to the event and was surprised that the people were interested, but the driver in the car said that the people had to attend the event or else they would get a bullet to their head. Eric felt that this event was going to be bigger than WrestleMania. Antonio said that the event felt like a badge of honor in this episode. When the wrestlers were in the ring wrestling, the audience seemed to have no clue on what they were watching as they all had blank faces. At one moment, Hawk cussed at the crowd. The wrestlers were not happy about the audience's reaction. Inoki paid tribute to his late mentor, Rikidōsan, who was murdered because he was North Korean. Rikidōsan was murdered by Japanese gangsters at a bar in November of 1963. When he was taught by Rikidōsan, he would hit Inoki with a wooden sword, which at one time, the sword got Inoki's head busted open. At the Peace Festival, Inoki and Flair had a match, and halfway through the match, the audience began to cheer. After the match was over, Inoki had won, and the audience cheered with a lot of enthusiasm. Scott said that it was one of the greatest matches that he had ever witnessed. When the wrestlers had the ceremonial dinner, Hawk and Scorpio came face to face at the hallway and used the elevator. Hawk apologized to Scorpio, and they have never butted heads since then. Eric and the wrestlers received back their passports, and once they got to the U.S. ground, Rick kissed the pavement and was happy to be back in the U.S. Days later, Inoki had lost his re-election and left politics. Scott said that he received praise from Muhammad Ali about his match. At the end of the episode, Eric said while being interviewed that the event in North Korea was bigger than WrestleMania, and he felt at the time that Vince must have been livid about it. Interviewers for this episode are Eric Bischoff, Too Cold Scorpio, Scott Norton, Antonio Inoki, Mike Chinoy, WCW and CNN correspondent, and Sonny Onu, former WCW manager. Some facts about this event is that there were 15 matches in total of the 2 days that the festival had happened. New Japan Pro Wrestling's Hidekazu Tanaka was the ring announcer for the event. Sao Tayama and Tiger Hattori were referees for the matches. Eric Bischoff, Mike Tenay, and Kazuo Ishikawa were commentators. Antonio wanted to do this event in order to make his stance in politics. In order to make his stance in politics look really good for his re-election and to improve diplomatic relations between Japan and North Korea. On day 1, Yuji Nagata defeated Tokimitsu Ishizawa in a singles match. Akira Hokuto and Bull Nakano defeated Mariko Yoshida in a tag team match. Hiroshi Hayes defeated Chris Benoit, who is known at the pay-per-view as Wild Pegasus. Ukami Gundam, which is the tag team of Mashiro Chono and Hiro Saito, defeated El Samurai and Tadao Yasuda. Scorpio defeated Shinjiro Otani, Kensuke Sasaki defeated Masa Saito, and the main event had Scott Norton defeat Shinya Hashimoto. In day 2, Hiro Saito defeated Yoji Nagata, Akira Hokuto defeated Bo Nakano, Black Cat defeated El Samurai, Wild Pegasus defeated Scorpio, Masahiro Chono and Scott Norton defeated Akira Nogami and Takayuki Izuku. Hawk defeated Tadao Yasura. The Steiner brothers defeated Hiroshi Hayes and Kensuke Sasaki, and the main event had Antonio Inoki defeat Ric Flair. After the event, the North Koreans wanted Ric Flair to read a statement saying that the nation had the capability of ruling the US, but Ric refused. He instead said that North Korea was a beautiful and peaceful country, and that Kim Il-sung will always be with them. In 1995, a picture of a bloody Ric Flair being beaten by Inoki was featured on propaganda leaflets that were dropped by the North Korean government over Seoul. The pay-per-view did not get much attention in the US and was released a year later. It sold 30,000, which was really small at the time. WWE hardly acknowledges this event even though they own all of WCW and show the pay-per-views on WWE Network, or now Peacock. According to Bischoff and sports journalist Dave Meltzer, WWE refused to acknowledge it and claimed that the attendance of 93,173 people for the WrestleMania 3 pay-per-view in 1987 was one of the largest events for a professional wrestling event, and that acknowledging a competitor of theirs breaking that record would hurt their image. As of 2024, Hawk passed away on October 19, 2003. Chris Benoit died by taking his life on June 24, 2007, after killing his wife and son that same weekend. If you want to know more information about Chris's case, you can watch my Dark Side of the Ring episode review video. Antonio Inoki died October 1, 2022 at the age of 79. Muhammad Ali died on June 3, 2016 at the age of 74. Antonio Inoki died of a heart disease around a year later after doing this episode. WWE and New Japan Pro Wrestling paid tribute to Antonio. Before he had passed, New Japan Pro Wrestling made Inoki honorary chairman for life in the promotion. Funny and interesting fact for Yu-Gi-Oh fans out there, the Joey Jin was inspired by Antonio Inoki. I give this episode a 9 out of 10 as it was interesting and crazy to hear the stories leading up to this event. Although Eric flexes that he had beaten Vince, does get a little tiring. I could tell by that grin that he loved to beat Vince. As for Road Warrior Hawk, I mean, come on, why are you saying the N-word? I get that your friend Scott was probably trying to defend you, but it just made you look kind of bad, in my opinion. It was a good episode, and I hope that we can get a chance to see the pay-per-view Sunday. But thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care of your mental health and everyone around you, and I'll do the same too. Bye guys.